All right, I think we are live. Good evening, everybody. Give everybody a minute here to get joined. While we're doing that, normal disclaimers I give if you're the first time to this video. I do these live broadcasts pretty much every Thursday, 7 o'clock Central Time. And we usually go for about an hour, 7 to 8. I have been having some internet issues lately, so sometimes the video freezes up or shuts down, and I'll just restart it. So don't go anywhere. If it hasn't been a full hour, I'll jump back on. I don't know, if you don't see me within 10-15 minutes, that probably means there's a permanent issue, but for the most part, I'll jump back on. And as far as how the live broadcast goes, it is pretty much just driven by chat. I just let whoever's in chat, ask questions. It's kind of an ask me anything kind of session. So feel free to join in on the chat. Love to see your comments and your questions. We got a few people in here already. Let me get set up here so I can see the chat, what's going on, and we'll get going here. Maybe. What's going on here? All right. I think we are good to go. All right, Tyler. Hey, how are you? We got Ellen in here. Good evening to you. Kinsey, good to see you. Blessed by God. What a great username. Hello to you. And Aviario, I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I'm sorry if I am. Good evening to you. Adam says, my Bob Whites finally laid eggs. Well, nice, Adam. Glad to hear that. They're laying eggs, but not every single day. Well, that's okay. You'll get eggs out of them anyway. I have never personally raised Bob White quail. I don't know where you're located, but here you would need a permit to do that because they are a native wild bird. So I don't think a permit's too difficult to get, but interesting. I'd like to see how those go. Colleen Parrish, hello to you. Southern Chicken. The chicken is in the house. Well, good to see you. I'm glad you made it. And let's see. Amber from Viburnum, Missouri, huh? Well, I guess we're kind of neighbors. I'm not sure where Viburnum is exactly. That's one town I don't think I've ever heard of in Missouri. But hey, glad to have you here. Tanner, hopefully I can call you Tanner. You're okay with that. How much fodder do you recommend to feed rabbits daily? Oh boy, I'd have to go back to notes for that. I can't remember exactly how much it is on fodder. I don't personally feed fodder to mine. I feed pellets, commercial pellets, and hay, and I give them free choice on hay. I can't remember the exact amount of fodder to feed them. There's a weight ratio. I can't remember what it is, Tanner. Is Walt in here? He's probably in here. He'll probably look that up and answer it for us. Hey, Walt, I see you're in here. I'll get that answer for you probably before the end here, Tanner. Remind me if I don't, and we'll look it up and we'll get it for you. I just can't remember off the top of my head how much it is. It's one of those things. Was it Einstein that said, don't try to memorize things you can easily look up or easily reference? So that's one of those things that since I don't feed, I don't have it memorized, but I can easily look it up and reference it. I just got to get to the rest of the chat here real quick. Can't do it while we're going on this. All right, so let's move on. Will says, when do you stop breeding rabbits for the summer? When do you start again? Good question, Will. Yeah, I don't like to breed rabbits in the heat of summer because they just don't do real well in the heat, anything over about 85 degrees. So for here in southwest Missouri, I mean, it's already 80 degrees, 85 degrees. We've had a couple of 90-degree days already. It's a little bit unseasonably warm, but the nights are dropping down. They're getting down into the 60s, so it's still not out of the woods. I mean, still could go ahead and breed probably one more time. Usually by the end of May, start of July, I like to have my litters, had by the start of June. Oh, excuse me. So they've had their babies before we get into the heat of June, because June is a really hot month here in Missouri. We usually start getting up in the 90s pretty regularly. The night times don't cool down that much, maybe the 80s. And then, it's not uncommon to have 100-degree days. So I usually stop breeding right about now. I might try to get one more litter in before the heat of summer really hits. And then I don't start back up until it cools off. So that's going to be like late October, early November, somewhere right around. Are we back? I think we're back. Okay, so Amber's close to Rolla. That's the last thing I think I said. I know where Rolla is, so you're not actually that far from me. All right, where are we at here? Joe Shelburne says Minko. I'm not sure where that is. Jimmy's in Missouri too. We got a lot of Missouri people in here today. Christopher Stone says, "Hey Chris, I had 3 mystery deaths in the other morning in the quail coop. The only thing I've come up with is the coop is a little too tall and something spooked them." That's a possibility, Christopher. I mean, it could be any number of things. Were you talking to me on Facebook? I can't remember now. I kind of talked about the same thing. It could be any number of things causing it. Unless it's like a widespread issue and it keeps happening, I wouldn't stress about it too much. Like you said, it's probably something spooked them. They could have jumped up and hit their head on the ceiling. I mean, there could be any number of things that could be causing that. And really just to guess at it is really just that. It's just a guess. So I'm sorry I can't really give you a great idea from that, but without too many symptoms, it's hard to really say. So 3832 says, from Ashdown, Arkansas. It's been in the high 90s here. And is it getting too hot to breed my rabbits? Well, it depends on who you ask, honestly. In my opinion, yeah, it is too hot for me to breed them. Oh, I see you just got your answer, so we got that cleared up for you. All right, Aviario. Boy, I'm going to have a hard time with your name. Aviario says, is pasture-raised rabbit a good idea? It's not a bad idea necessarily. There are a couple of things to kind of consider with pasture-raising a rabbit. They will grow out a little bit slower if you're feeding them, if they're letting them wild forage. It's going to take them a little bit longer to grow out. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just something to consider with that. They also are going to have a slightly higher chance of getting parasites, diseases. That really depends on your area, though, where you are. And so it just depends on what the density of that stuff is. But, parasites and those kinds of things live in the ground. So when they're in contact with ground, they are going to have a higher chance of getting those things. But again, it may not be that big of a risk, just depending on your area. I don't know how bad that stuff is in your area. So, it's not a bad idea. You are going to have to provide them with shade. You're going to have to make sure they have clean water. You're going to have to move them quite a bit if you keep them in cages. And I would not just let them run loose, because rabbits are notorious diggers. They're going to dig out of just about any kind of fence that you put up, unless you bury it quite deep in the ground. There are people that do that and raise them in colonies. But they're also going to be susceptible, especially if they're young, to hawks and things like that fly over. So, those are just a couple of things to consider. But if you got all that considered, then, it's perfectly fine if you want to pasture raise your rabbits. Go for it. Nothing wrong with that at all. All right. Excuse me. Colleen says, have you ever had an adult rabbit refuse to use your water system? Okay, I have had one. I wouldn't say refuse to use my water system. But Colleen, I have had problems whenever rabbits first get, whenever you first switch them over to the water system, it's like they don't know how to use it. And I did figure out a way to kind of teach them how to use it. I've explained this before, but try to go through that again. The rabbit, if you had them on bottles where they lick them and the water comes out, the little ball valve water, and you switch them over to the bite valves that are on a watering system, it does take them, they don't know exactly how to get the water out of that. So you can, you push the buttons and the water comes out. They're probably going to be pretty thirsty. They're going to come right up to the cage. They're going to start licking that water up, but they still can't figure out to bite onto the valve to get the water to come out of it. So what I do is I wait till they get thirsty like that, push that valve, they come up, they're licking the water, push the valve, they're licking the water again, and then I take the water valve off the cage and I move it back just a little bit, push it again, they'll lick it up again. And here's the cage edge, it's sitting just right inside the cage edge. Then I move it back just a little bit, and I start pulling it away from them when they start to lick on it. And when I do, they'll grab a hold of it with their teeth to pull it back into the cage. And when they do that, it lets the water out. So I usually have to do that maybe once or twice, and then they figure it out. So that's my way to get them to drink out of it. Hopefully that helps. All right, K-Thought says, hi, Chris, I'm having a bear of a time concerning my rabbit. Oh, the chat's getting behind the screen here. I can't see. Okay. Hi, Chris, I'm having a bear of a time concerning my rabbit housing. I don't have it all together yet. What I'm doing is taking them outside during the day and bringing them back in at night. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm following exactly. What are you putting them in during the day? And is there a reason you can't use that to keep them in all night as well? If you've got some kind of indoor caging, you might be able to just, use that outside as well. But, hey, if it's working for you, it's working for you, no problem. Oh, excuse me. Again, I just finished dinner, so sorry about that. All right, where were we at with this? So, well, hopefully you get your rabbit housing together soon, though. I always suggest to people when you're getting into rabbits, get your cages and stuff set up first. Same thing with quail. Really, any kind of animal, get your pens and all stuff set up first, because Yeah, just like you, I've been there myself. I get the animal, I bring it home, and I'm like, oh crap, now I got to build a cage, and I got to do it quick, and then all kinds of things come up and get in the way of getting it done. So I know how that goes. Good luck with it. I hope it works. Hey, Isabel's here. How are you? How are you? Jimmy's in Salem, Missouri. I know where Salem, Missouri is. And Amber says, cool. I love it down this way. What's down this way? Oh, down around Rolla. There we go. Down around Rolla. That's up for me, so that had me backwards. Where are we at? Brandon Funk says, Chris, hello, my good friend. Hatched 42 quail eggs. Candle at lockdown. Ended up with 26 fertile eggs. Hatched out 20 of 26 with dry incubating. Way better than my last batch and much healthier. Well, fantastic to hear that. I'm kind of curious, when you say dry incubating, did you do dry incubating all the way through lockdown? That's something I've tried. I've experimented a little bit with dry incubation and had pretty good success with it. It worked out pretty well. But I do usually add a little bit of water at lockdown to kind of keep them hydrated whenever keep the humidity up a little bit whenever they're hatching. But right now I probably don't need to. With it being summertime, I mean, the humidity outside is like 80% already. So it's really, especially right now, we're getting all kinds of rain and stuff. So I probably don't need to add any water because the humidity in the air is high enough. But in the wintertime, for sure, I did find that I did add a little bit of water to that. So, it's something you might want to keep an eye on. But hey, good to hear that you're having good luck with your dry incubation. I'm glad to hear about your success. Congratulations. Colleen says, we have 54 rabbits, including kits, but one doe won't use the system. And we have been keeping a bowl in the cage to keep her hydrated. Well, I don't know if that's just stubbornness or if she just doesn't know how. If you take the bowl away from her and you give her, don't do it for like days on end. You don't want her to die from dehydration or anything, but you might try to take the bowl away from her, give her, till about noon if you can, if it's a possibility. Go out and see if she'll use the system then. But then again, your rabbit better than I do, so it could be just that she's refusing to use it. It's hard to say. Who knows? All right, Barrett's Rabbit says, hi from Sydney, Australia. Did you get yourself a new doe? I found it interesting that the placid nature of the babies. Maybe the buck has a good temperament. Keep up the great videos. Oh, good question. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I've got a doe that's just super aggressive, and I've got a litter of grow outs. It's just right about ready to go to the freezer probably this weekend. Meant to do it last weekend, but just couldn't get to it. But they are pretty mellow. They're pretty calm, which is surprising to me because I don't really handle them all that much, but they don't mind it at all. You go up and you open up the cage, they come right up to the front. They're fine with you petting them and stuff. You pick them up, it's a little bit different, but they don't bite. They're not aggressive. They're not freaked out. Their temperament's great. And yeah, the buck is a pretty mellow buck, but I usually find that bucks are a lot more mellow and a lot more easygoing than does are anyway. So who knows? Who knows why? I find it interesting as well. No, I have not gotten a new doe yet. I saw some pop up for sale on Craigslist, purebred New Zealands, so I may go pick up one of those, New Zealand white. But I just haven't had time to do that. So if they still have them available when I have time, I may go get one of those and replace my doe with it. If I do, like I said, she's too aggressive. I can't make a pet out of her. I can't give her to anybody as a pet. So she's probably going to go in the freezer and probably going to become sausage. So you guys may see a video on how to make rabbit sausage. We'll see. Oh, excuse me again. Cora K says, just hatched 96 quail this week. They sell very well in my area, especially the females. I sell them for $5 each. At a week old, that's really good prices. Around here, they usually go for about $1 up to about a week old. Then they go for $2 up to about 2 weeks old, $3 up to 3 weeks, $4 up to 4 weeks, and then from that point on, they're $5 a piece is about the going rate for them. I need to post some on Craigslist for sale. I've got some eggs in the incubator right now. Just put them in last Saturday, so they haven't been in there for quite a week yet. And I usually sell a handful of quail out about every hatch. Helps me pay for feed, and it usually pays for most of my feed during the summer. Kay Thom says, watch out for snakes too. I think you're talking about for pasture-raising rabbits, watch out for snakes. Good point. Depends on how big the rabbits are, though, and where you live. Around here, snakes don't get big enough to eat a full-grown rabbit or even a large baby. Anything more than about a week and a half old, 10, 14 days old, it's a little big for most of the snakes around here. Occasionally, you might see a black snake that gets that big, but it's rare. Harlow says, can you believe that jumbo meat maker quails are 16 to 19 ounces? Well, not all of them, but yeah, 16 ounces is probably closer to the average. Actually, it's probably a little higher than average. I think they usually range for me, 14 to 16 ounces, somewhere right around in there. Occasionally might get one at 19 ounces, but yeah, they're significantly bigger birds than the standard birds. I love them. I much prefer the jumbo birds myself. All right, Val says, "Hey Chris, love your videos. Is corn wheat safe for? Oh, is corn and wheat safe for rabbits?" Well, I don't think corn's really a good choice to feed your rabbits. Wheat is fine, but corn's not really good for anything. It's just not a great choice. And I mean, a little bit's okay. There's usually going to be some corn in the feed that you feed them. That's fine, but don't make it a staple in their diet. It's just not a good choice to feed them. Wheat is okay to feed them, especially if you're going to do like fodder or something, but it's probably pretty expensive. You're probably better off with like barley or rye or something like that to feed them. That's going to be a little bit cheaper. All right, chat's going by pretty quick, guys. So if I miss your comment, don't get it responded to, feel free to leave it again. I'll do my best to get to it. All right, Chloe says, "Hey Chris, my female rabbit has started." Oh, wait a minute, I missed something. Where are we at here? Had no idea they eat so much. Vaughn, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Rabbits eat so much, or quail? Quail eat a lot. So that's probably what you're talking about. But anyway, okay, let's get on to Chloe's comment. "Hey Chris, my female rabbit had started pulling fur out and making a nest like she's going to have babies, but it's literally impossible for her to get pregnant. Any idea what might be?" Sounds like it could be a false pregnancy. That happens from time to time. You say literally impossible. I'm not sure how you know it's literally impossible for her unless you have no bucks anywhere nearby. If you have her caged next to a buck, it is possible for them to breed through the wire. It's happened before. It's unlikely, but it has happened before. So, yeah, who knows? It's probably a false pregnancy. I wouldn't stress too much about it. Put a nest box in there just in case. Give her, 5 or 10 days at the most, and then you can take it out. She's going to be over it probably. All right, Brandon says, 0 water until lockdown. At lockdown, I brought him up to 75% humidity with water during lockdown. Yeah, Brandon, that's the way I did my dry incubation too. Worked out pretty well for me. I'm glad to hear that you had a good success with it as well. All right, Isabel says, "Doing best this old woman can do with chronic pain, just a day at a time sometimes." Isabel, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know you had chronic pain issues, but I'll add you to my prayer list and pray for you for sure. D Custom says, "Hey, you think eBay incubators are worth it to buy?" Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, eBay incubators range, all over the place. So, check the comment, check the feedback. That's the good thing about eBay. Check the feedback ratings on whoever you're buying from. If they get good ratings, check the products they're selling. And if they've sold a lot of incubators and everybody's giving good feedback, it's probably fine to buy. I prefer to go with, a reputable company like Miller Manufacturing, sells Little Giants, Farm Innovations, Hovabator, something like that. So if I do have a problem, I have a company to contact. My experience has been, at least with Miller Manufacturing that makes Little Giant, fantastic customer support, stand behind their product really well. So to me, it's worth a little bit more money to have that. But then again, I'm not saying you won't get that with an eBay seller either. So that's my thought on that. I can't really give you a recommendation as to whether it's worth it or not, though. I'd have to look at the specific listing, the specific incubator, all that kind of stuff. All right, Alisane, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, from West Africa. Humid climate is 88%. What's that? I can set my incubator for quail chicks. I'm missing something. What percentage humidity can I set my quail for, or my incubator for quail chicks? Excuse me, I gotta get a drink here real quick. Okay, 88% is a little bit high on humidity, but it's not terribly high. You probably don't need to add much to your incubator. I usually like to keep it, in the 50 to 60% range up until lockdown. But if it's a little higher than that, don't stress about it. It's probably going to be fine. At lockdown, I like to bump it up to about 75 to 80%. Again, if it's a little bit higher than that, it's going to be okay. Don't stress about it too much. So hopefully that kind of answers that question for you. Again, you may not have to add any water if the incubator itself may be reading in the high 80% with no water added with your humidity that high. Olivia, hey there, how are you? And Amber says, "I've learned a lot from your videos. We have 2 does and 1 buck. We had our first kits on the 10th of April. Thanks to your videos, I learned that my quail need more light, and now they lay good." Well, thank you for the kind comments there, Amber. I'm so glad that you're finding all my videos helpful. that you're learning from them, and that I'm able to help you out. I appreciate you letting me know that. All right, Ellen says, is that after dressing the jumbo quail or live weight? Oh, the 16 to 19 ounces, no, that's like live weight. That's not after dressing them. I don't know what they dress out as, but it's not, I mean, it's a little bit less. I don't know. I don't think I've ever weighed them after they're dressed out. All right, D Custom says, digital egg incubator from eBay. Want to buy, but don't know qualities. Yeah, I'm not sure I can steer you in the right direction on that. I've never bought one myself. I'm not familiar with them enough, so I can't really give you much of a recommendation. Like I said, look at the feedback ratings. See if they get good feedback. If they do, it's probably okay. I don't know how much they cost either, but you know, if it's like your last dollar, you know, if that's what you're holding on to because it's your last dollar, I'd save up and I'd wait to get something a little bit more reputable that has a company that's going to stand behind it. Like I said, with the Little Giant, I had the thermostat go out in mine, and it was like a year and a half or 2 years after I bought it. I mean, it was a long time. Thermostat went out, and I contacted the company. Boom, new thermostat sent to me within like 3 or 4 days. So, you know, that's worth the extra money in my opinion. But that's just me. All right, Avario says, just call me Ray. It's easier. At what age do you start retiring your does? Well, I'm probably going to forget that, Ray. I'm going to try to remember that. I'll probably forget that. What age do I start retiring your does? It depends on whenever they stop producing good, healthy litters. Usually about 2 years. You can usually get about 2 years out of a doe. Sometimes 3. It just kind of depends. But usually if you have a doe that's like 9, 10 babies every time, and then she delivers only 2 or 3, then it's usually a good sign that and she's older. Like I said, about 2 years or older. Then it's a good sign that maybe it's time to retire her at that point. All right, Andrea says, Andrea or Andrea, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right either. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Says, I give my rabbits field corn to wear their teeth down, and they love it. You know, there's probably nothing wrong with that. Again, I wouldn't make it a staple in their diet, but giving them a little bit here and there to chew on to keep their teeth down, that's fine. And everything likes corn, by the way. Not just rabbits. I mean, everything likes corn. Turkey, deer, rabbits, I mean, everything likes corn. That doesn't necessarily mean it's really good for them, though. All right, so who's this? Kathom says, I took a picture of a black snake climbing up on the trees. I have in my yard. It was 5 foot long. I'll post it on my Facebook channel. Yeah, we've got some big black snakes around here. I've caught them here I've caught some that were over 6 feet long, easily over 6 feet long, and I've seen some even bigger than that. But even a 6 foot long black snake's not but about that big around, so it's not going to eat a full-grown rabbit. It's just a little too big for it. All right, brought my doe to my buck, and they're not seeming to want to have anything to do with him. And my buck seems like he doesn't know how to get the job done. Thoughts on how to get a successful breeding? Okay, Danae, okay, that's a tough situation. Usually it's not uncommon at all for does to not be responsive to the buck, but usually the buck's going to be all over the doe, really trying to breed. And if he's not, the first thing to look at is he overweight? Are you feeding him too much? Because that's usually the case with a buck that is reluctant to want to breed. Usually it's overweight. Sorry, let me get a drink here. Not always the case, but that's usually the case. A couple things you can do until you get your buck in the mood. There's not really much you're going to be able to do to get your does going. Are you sure your does are does and they're not other bucks? That's happened before too. Just check and make sure. But you know, when you put the doe in there, the male should be pretty much right on that doe, just ready to go. So, you know, it's not uncommon, again, for the doe to be a little reluctant, want to hunker down in the corner or something like that. But your male should be pretty adamant about wanting to breed. So, you know, again, check the feed. If he's not overweight, if you haven't fed him too much, then we might try adding some light. If you don't have enough light, they need, about 14 hours a day will kind of help get them in the mood, so to speak. So that's something you can try there. Hopefully that works. All right, Doug says, give them just hay, no pellets. Oh, I missed that comment. Chris Shane says, what can I get my rabbits that have diarrhea? Yeah, you need to make sure that that's a good suggestion, Doug. Give them hay, no pellets, keep them on a hay diet. Diarrhea can be a bad thing, so you really need to keep an eye on them, make sure they're hydrated. You might have to add some electrolytes to the water or something like that. Really keep an eye on them over the next couple of days, and hopefully they get over that pretty quick. You can give, I want to say, kale pectate is okay to give to rabbits. Double check that. Do a Google search and find out, and that may be able to help them with that. And try to figure out what's caused the diarrhea too. I mean, If it's sometimes stress factors can do that. So like if you've recently moved them or something like that and they're stressed out, they'll just have a little spout of diarrhea and then they get over it. It's no big deal. So don't just go medicating them right away. I mean, make sure it's kind of a prolonged thing. Also, if you're feeding like if you switched them over to greens really quick, that can cause the problems too. And if that's the case, don't. I'm not talking about hay. I'm talking about like wild greens you pick out of the grass, you know, the yard or whatever. You want to back off of those for a little while and give them nothing but hay. Hopefully that works out for you. Good luck with it. I hope it doesn't end badly. It can really wear a rabbit down quickly if you're not careful. All right, Nick says, so I found 10 quail chicks stuck in a storm drain with their mom. Then a day later she abandoned them, so I took them. What should I feed them? You know, Walt already got the answer. Game bird starter, yeah, for sure. How old are they? Well, it doesn't matter. They're quail chicks. Feed them game bird starter. That's going to work. Be careful, though. If they're wild birds, you probably need a permit in order to be able to legally keep those. Now, that doesn't mean anybody's going to come after you and arrest you or any of those kinds of things, but you know, it may be technically illegal to take those in and try to house them yourself. So you might just be careful with that. All right, 5 Tons with Guns says, hey, hello, Chris. We are considering trapping some of the wild quail that we feed and add them to our flock. Have you heard of anyone doing this? I've never heard of anyone doing that, but again, you know, make sure you got the permits to do it, and you should be okay with that. I don't know how they would tame up, if they ever would tame up, or if they would ever breed in captivity or not. I just don't know. You know, it's worth an experiment. I've never heard of anybody doing it, but, you know, there are bob whites in captivity. They had to come from somewhere, so, you know, somebody probably did it at one point. All right, 355 DC says, we are adding frozen water bottles to keep our rabbits cool in the hot weather. Any other ideas? Okay, wow, I'm really dried out tonight for some reason. All right, yeah, I've done that before. I've frozen 2-liter bottles of water and stuck them in their cage. Problem I have with that is that it's like they thaw out in just a couple of hours, and then they're without it anyway. My rabbits didn't really seem to use it. They didn't really seem to lay anywhere near it or on it or anything like that, so I just stopped doing it. It didn't seem like it was benefiting them that much at all. A couple things you can do, go to like Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever box store, buy some ceramic tiles. Ceramic tile, it's like a resting mat for them, and those tend to stay a little bit cooler as long as they're in the shade. Always make sure your rabbits are in the shade, not just the shade of their roof, but shade. So like put their hutch under a shade tree, or like mine's on the north side of my house, and the sun's on the south side, so it never gets sun hitting the cage directly. You can add fans. Don't add fans blowing directly on them. Add fans that maybe blow over the top of the cages or whatever to kind of keep some air movement, but not directly on the rabbits. If you live in a dry climate, it doesn't work here, but if you live in a dry climate, you can add like a swamp cooler, like a mister type thing. Again, you don't want to mist the rabbits, but if you mist the cages and that stuff evaporates, it will drop the temperature in there, 5-10 degrees sometimes. But again, you don't want to spray the rabbits directly. That's not what you want to do. You want to spray it on the outside of the cage and kind of cool the area. That will help with that too. There's a couple ideas. Honestly, the biggest thing I do is just don't mess with the rabbits during the heat of the day. Just leave them alone. They're usually fine. They don't like the heat that much. They struggle with the heat a little bit. But as long as you're not, riling them up, getting them up, moving around a lot, they're usually okay. They'll usually just kind of sprawl out on the wire and just lay there all day long, and then they get up and move around at night. So that's my best suggestion on it. Okay, Nick says, Walt Lars, okay, I kind of knew that, but what was the best brand? Should I specify? Oh, should have specified. I'm not sure if, yep, looks like Walt's responded to that. Dumar is a good brand. Really, any brand. Don't worry about the brand of quail food. It doesn't matter. Try to get something maybe that's non-medicated, but then again, if you can't, don't stress about that either. Just get a game bird starter or a turkey starter. If you can't find game bird starter, turkey starter's pretty close, and it should work out well for you. It doesn't really matter what brand it is. All right, Ellen says, I'm hesitant to buy an incubator that's not got some sort of insulation. That's probably a good, I'm not sure if I missed what that was in response to, but that's probably a good policy. I think an incubator does need to be insulated somehow, whether that's styrofoam or something. It needs to be insulated to kind of maintain the heat, not have big spikes and drops in temperature. Okay, Kane K says, please help. I got a quail and I don't know how to pick it up. they keep trying to fly away. Okay, are we talking about Coturnix quail here? Because really what you do is you just reach in and grab them. I mean, just reach in and put your hand over them and grab them and try to, it's not forceful, it's not squeeze them real hard or anything like that, but you just reach in and grab them. Keep your fingers kind of wide over their wings. You don't want them to get their wings out, because if you get their wings out, they start flopping around and they can hurt themselves. So you do want to kind of pin their wings back, but it's not that much effort to do that. It's pretty easy. But that's it. Yeah, I mean, just reach in and grab them. That's all there is to it. Just don't be hesitant about it. Yeah, they're going to jump around and fly around a little bit, but they'll calm down pretty quick. So just wait till they land, wait till they stop freaking out, and then just reach in and grab them. That's all there is to it. All right. Yeah, Walt, I think you said the same thing to 5 Tons and Guns about keeping wild birds can be illegal. If I remember right, though, I think he's already got a permit. I think he's talked about that before. He's already got the permits required, so I think he's okay on that sense. All right, Cora says, I have 4 Wright Farm incubators from eBay. They work great, all very accurate, and high hatch rate, $99 free shipping. Yeah, Wright, is it Wright Farm incubators? Wright Farm or Farm Innovation? I don't know. That's probably a reputable company. I don't know really a whole lot about them, but hey, there's a good recommendation there. For $99, an incubator, I don't think that's a bad deal at all. That sounds like a pretty good deal. All right, Gabby says, if my bunny's poo is black and small, do I need to take her to the vet? Probably not, as long as it's not runny and like diarrhea. Black and small is not that big of a deal. If you're not feeding hay, go ahead and add hay to their diet. That extra fiber will help with that. But no, I don't think that sounds anything to stress about. All right, Danae says, my buck is definitely in the mood to breed, but can't find the hole. Okay, the does keep biting him and running around the cage. Are the does just not ready to breed, or is he too young? Okay, that's a different story, Don. Danae, the rabbits are induced breeders. They're not, they don't like go to heat or anything like that. It's the act of breeding that actually gets them to drop their eggs and do all that kind of stuff. So, it's not uncommon at all for does to be very reluctant to breed. Now, biting the buck, that's maybe a little bit aggressive on their end, but usually what I find is if you just keep trying, put the doe in the cage, in the morning, and if they don't breed within, 10 minutes, if she's running around and biting at the buck or whatever, remove her, put her back in her cage. Then when you come home that evening, put her in there again. If she's still doing it, take her out. Do it again the next morning. Do it again the next evening. Usually after about 4 or 5 times, she's kind of in the mood to breed. That usually works for me. There's a lot of different tricks that you can do, but that's the one that I usually have pretty good success with. But yeah, it's more than likely your doe is not. The doe's got to lift in order for the buck to be able to breed. So he's going to try no matter what. But if she's not lifting, it's not going to help. So, and chances are he's trying and she's finally sick of it, like, leave me alone. So again, just keep trying. Chances are she'll lift for him pretty quick, and you won't have that problem anymore. Hopefully that helps. All right. All right, so K&K says, and if I just got it, how many days until they lay eggs? Okay, you just got your quail. You want to know how many days it's going to be till they lay eggs. It depends on how old your birds are to begin with. If they are over 8 weeks old, then they're mature. They're probably going to start laying eggs any time now. But generally, they kind of stress out when you move them. And they'll usually shut down laying for a couple of weeks. So I would expect probably in about 2 weeks, you should expect starting getting eggs. Now, if they're younger than that, then they're going to have to reach, maturity first. And about 2 weeks they'll calm down. If they're 6 weeks old, you might give them 3, maybe 4 weeks at the most. It's hard to say exactly, but that's kind of the general rule of thumb. Hopefully that helps. All right, Amber says, how old are they? Okay, you're asking K&K that. All right, where are we at? Hey, Armed Americans in the house here. How are you? Foxy Gaming says, my quail has yet to lay an egg. I did everything you said, 12 hours of light and never more than... Okay, Foxy, you need 14 hours of light, not 12. So that may be part of the issue. Probably not, though. Even with 12 hours of light, they should lay an egg every once in a while. Make sure you're feeding them a decent high-protein game bird starter, 25% or over. That'll probably help with that. But up the daylight to about 14 hours a day. They really need that. I mean, that's the key. 14 hours a day of light, and that'll probably do it. The Bluesman hatched out 14 Valley quail this morning. Well, congratulations on your hatch. Tom Wolf says, hey, Chris, setting 120 jumbos from Kansas City Quail Farm as we speak. Second batch. Thanks for all the advice. Working perfectly. Well, glad to hear that, Tom. Again, you can't go wrong with good bloodlines. Kansas City Quail Farms has them. Chicky Poppins, who's also in here as Armed American, also does ship eggs. I don't have personal experience with it, but he's MPIP certified and has some good bloodlines as well. So there's another place that you can order eggs from. Tom Wolf says, hey, Chris. Okay, I already read that one, Tom. Sorry. Going to get you again. Bluesman says, Wright Farm. Wright Farm. Oh, that's the incubator name. Wright Farm Incubators. Okay. Rebecca says, hey, Chris. I wanted to thank you for your advice about processing my first quail roosters this weekend. Thank you for everything. It went really well. I can't wait to eat them. Well, I'm so glad to hear that went well for you. If I remember right, you were a little bit stressed out about doing it the first time. And if that's the case, I'm so glad to hear that you got through it. I mean, it's one of those things like the first time you do it, it's a little nerve-wracking. But once you get through the first one, it's all downhill from there. It's much, much easier from there. So congratulations on your successful hatch or successful butchering. And I'm sure you're going to have a great dinner with those guys. Cook them hot and fast. That's the way you want to cook quail. Southern Chicken, thank you so much for the $1 super chat there. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, Julian says, how old do quails lay eggs? I don't know if you mean how old do they need to be before they start laying, or how old will they be when they stop laying? I'll just answer both of those. Generally about 8 weeks old is when they start laying. Sometimes it'll be 6 weeks, sometimes it'll be 10 weeks, but 8 weeks is probably about the average, as long as they have enough light, 14 hours a day of light. They'll usually lay eggs for about 2 years. They'll start slowing down towards the end of that, but for the most part, about 2 years, they'll lay eggs. So hopefully that kind of answers that for you. All right, Cora says, yep, it's Wright Farm. It has a red top and a plastic body. Sellers from the USA. I bought one last year, and it ran 4 months straight. It was sold, so I bought several more. Nice. Oh, I was sold, so I bought several more. Okay, you ran it for 4 months straight, worked great, so you bought several more. Glad to hear that's going good. I like to hear you guys' reviews on those products. I get questions about those things sometimes. I haven't personally used them, so I can't really speak to them. So, all right, Foxy Gaming says, I think I'll incubate eggs. Where can I buy cheap eggs, like Best Website? I have an incubator. I have incubated chick eggs. Okay, Foxy Gaming, first of all, I don't know of any place where you're going to buy cheap eggs, quail eggs when you buy them. With the shipping and all, they're usually a little bit on the high side. They're not going to be super cheap. But if you want really good bloodlines, that's the way to do it. If you're buying cheap eggs and getting them shipped to you, I'd be questioning the results. If you want cheap eggs, look for somebody locally on Craigslist or something like that that's selling them. You're going to be able to get them cheaper that way. But if you you bought your quail from the pet store, well, that may not be a bad thing. It could be any number of things going. But yeah, if you want really good bloodlines, go with a reputable breeder. Kansas City Quail Farms. Chicky Poppins, who is one of the viewers, he's in the chat tonight. Speak to him. He might be able to help you out with getting some eggs. All right, Kane K says, sorry I wasn't here when you tell me about my quails. Can you tell me? I don't know what you're asking me, Kane K. I'm sorry I lost it. I don't know what I'm supposed to tell you again. If I answered it earlier, I'm sorry. I've forgotten already. Got too many chats going on. I can't keep up with it. Ask again. I'll do my best to get it answered for you. All right, Neil says, just put my quail eggs in my new incubator. Question is, my egg turtle lays the eggs on its side and rolls them back and forth. Is this for quail eggs? It's a Genol 12 incubator. I'm not real familiar with the Genol 12 incubators, but you're saying instead of it rocking them back and forth like the egg sits like this, instead of it doing this, it's sitting on its side and it's rolling the egg? Is that what you're saying? If so, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. For that matter, you don't even need a turner. You just open up the incubator and kind of do this with them. Run your hands over the top of them a couple times a day, and that's fine. They just need to be kind of moved a little bit from time to time. If you think about it, when a hen's hatching eggs, they don't get up and turn the eggs over. They just move around a little. That's what keeps the eggs from turning. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Don't stress about it. Your egg turner is going to be fine. All right, Julianne says, what age should I butcher my rabbits? It depends, Julianne, on what you're wanting to get out of them. If you don't have the extra cage space to separate all your males and females, I'd do it by about 12 weeks old. If you have the extra cage space and you want to grow them out longer, then by all means, grow them out longer. But usually by about 12 weeks is the most. I try to get mine to where I can butcher them by 8 weeks old, but that requires really good bloodlines in your rabbits to get them up to about 4.5 to 5 pounds by 8 weeks. Most of the time, most of the rabbits I've had in the last couple of years, they're getting up there. It's closer to 12 weeks by the time they get up to that size. Hopefully that answers that question. All right, where are we at here? Ellen says, the only quail I've ever seen in a pet shop were Chinese painted quail or button quail. Good point, Ellen. I was kind of curious about that too. So, Evario, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. I appreciate that. And where was I at with that? So you threw me off. I got a surprise. Always surprised whenever you guys throw money at me for some reason. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. You humble me whenever you do that. And I'm just glad that you guys find the videos helpful, that I'm able to help you out. I really do put these videos out from a standpoint of wanting to help others out. You know, a couple of dollars here and there is nice, but that's not the reason I do this. So it's always appreciated whenever you guys do throw a little bit of money this way. I appreciate that. All right, where were we at with that? Painted button quail. Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, Ellen, when you said he bought them from a pet store. I was thinking, a pet store? I've never seen Coturnix quail at a pet store. So, you know, who knows? All right, Crystal Marshall says, my Rex doe had 10 babies tonight. She actually had 11, but one was almost not formed at all. Is that because she already had so many babies, her baby didn't focus on that one, or what? You know, there's any number of reasons it could cause that, Crystal. Unless it's an ongoing thing, I wouldn't worry about it. Every once in a while, a deformity happens. That's just all there is to it. It could be because she had so many. It could be any number of reasons why that could have happened. I wouldn't worry about it. It's as long as it's, again, not an ongoing, you know, every litter kind of thing. It's no big deal. All right, Tom Wolf says, hey, Chris, my breeders' Californias are 4 months old, and I hear all kinds of advice on when to start breeding them. Some say no later than 14 to 16 weeks. You say 6 months. Yeah, I always go about 6 months. That's generally the kind of the general wisdom on when's a good time to start breeding them. I find that if you, well, I shouldn't say I find that, but generally if you start breeding them earlier than that, it can you can run into some problems. It can stunt their growth. It can, because they're still growing at 14, 16 weeks, up till about 6 months old. That's just my personal taste. You know, ultimately you can do whatever you want with them. I personally don't like to breed before 6 months old. That's just me. All right, the Bluesman is talking about building something. I built me a 30 by 30 by 15 cabinet, double-walled, 1-inch board, insulated, 3 turners for less than $300 with an XL kit from Incubator Warehouse, and it works perfect. Nice to hear that. That's an awful big incubator, but you know, nice to hear that it worked out well. I'm glad to hear it. All right, Cora says, the red egg turner holds 36 eggs. It has multi-sized egg racks. I can hold 144 quail eggs. That's quite a bit. I usually get, I think I can get 120 in my little giant with the quail rails in the turner. Oh, okay, K&K, you're asking me how to pick up the quail. And again, chat's going by really quick, guys, so if I miss your comment, leave it again. I'll try to get it answered. Okay, how to pick up your quail? You just reach in and grab them. That's all. I mean, there's no secret to it. Yeah, they may be a little spooked and want to jump around when you first open up the cage, but they should calm down pretty quick. And you just reach in and grab them. And Rebecca, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. I appreciate that. I distracted me from what I was saying here, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, picking up quail. The one thing you want to do is when you grab your quail, make sure that you, again, don't grab them hard, don't squeeze them real hard, but you do want to put your hands over them in a way where you kind of pin their feathers to their body. If they get their feathers loose, they're going to start flapping them all over the place, and they can injure themselves that way. So you do want to try to grab them, and just be deliberate about it. Just be not super fast, like smack them, but be deliberate. Just reach in and grab them. Don't be hesitant. Don't, you know, move back and forth. Like, just reach in, grab them. You're going to be fine with it. All right. Tony says, can I breed my New Zealand buck to a mini Rex doe? I don't think I would do that. Maybe the other way around. If you wanted to breed a mini Rex buck to a New Zealand doe, but not a New Zealand doe or buck to a mini Rex doe. That's an awful big rabbit to be breeding to an awful small rabbit. So that personally, I don't think I would do that. Walt's doing chicken chores tonight, so he's in and out of the chat. Well, it's all right, Walt. We're glad to have you here when you are here. Cora says, I have 3 Magic Fly yellow round incubators. I use as lockdown incubators. I would highly recommend these incubators, especially for beginners. $45 and free shipping from eBay. Interesting. I like to go with those are pretty small, aren't they? Don't they only hold like 7 or 8 or 10 eggs or something like that? I'm not sure, but interesting. Glad to hear they're working well. Interesting, Foxy. Your local pet store has Coturnix, Quail, and Jumbo. Hey, I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. Buying from the pet store, there's not necessarily any problem with that. They should be good birds. All right, where are we at here? Thomas, hi Chris, I'm getting quails soon. Do you have any tips and tricks for me? I'm thinking about getting 5 quails. Wow, that's a wide open question, Thomas. I've got a ton of videos on quail stuff, so whatever you want to know, go back, check them out. They'll answer them, but you're going to have to be more specific. Get me narrowed down here. The one thing I will say, if you're getting quails soon, get your cages set up. Before you get any birds, get your cages set up, get your feed, and get your water set up. Once you got those things set up, make sure that the cage has, some kind of place where they can get out of the wind, whether that's, an upside down box with a hole cut in it they can get in. Cut a couple of holes so they don't get pinned in there. They can get in one way and out another, or vice versa. Get all that stuff set up. Make sure they have a wind block. Make sure they have feed and water, and you're going to be fine other than that. There's not a whole lot to it, but go back and check all my videos and see what, if you have other questions, let me know. I'll do my best to answer those. All right. All right, I got a couple of conversations. Okay, Avario. Oh, no, it's Ray, right? Avario. I try to remember to call you Ray. Says, Chris, is there any way to differentiate between aggressiveness and overprotection on a doe? In my book, they're the same thing. Aggressiveness, overprotection. Does are not, rabbits are not like incredibly overprotective of their babies in most cases. If you are concerned about that, you've got a doe that may be a little bit aggressive. When you remove the babies, give her a week or two to calm down, see if she's still overly aggressive. If she is, it's aggression. It's not being overprotective. Usually what I find is the other way around. You might have a doe that's aggressive, but once she's bred, she has babies, she calms right down. That's usually the case. But no, there's no way to know for sure, but that would be the way I would test it. All right, Nikki Warner says, I'm thinking about building some quail cages and raising them in my garage. What type of ventilation system should I use for my garage? I was thinking just a large fan to pull dander and dust out. That's probably all you need, Nikki. I open a window so that there's some airflow or something, but other than that, you probably don't need anything more. I will tell you one thing with quail, the odor and things like that, it's not going to be too bad as long as you can keep their droppings dry. So have a watering system that doesn't leak, that doesn't drip into the dropping pan, because if their droppings are wet, it's a total different story. One of the worst smells you can imagine. But if the droppings are dry, hardly any odor whatsoever. It's not really that big of a deal. All right, Tanner's Epic Python says, are ticks an issue with rabbits? Not with my rabbits. I don't think I've ever had a tick on any of my rabbits. But yeah, if you keep them on the ground, they're going to get ticks. Just like a dog would get ticks, just like a snake would get ticks, just like anything would get ticks. If it's on the ground, they're going to get them. And depending on how bad they are in your area, you might have ticks coming into your rabbitry and getting on your rabbits. As far as how to treat ticks on rabbits, I don't know that there's a whole lot you can do other than just pick them off when they occur. Because especially meat rabbits, you don't want to be treating them with like Revolution or any of those, any kind of pesticide if you're going to be eating the rabbit. That's just my opinion. All right, Cora says, I've been incubating without stop since October 2017. I'm really tired. I can imagine, Cora. That's a lot of incubating. I don't know why that made me laugh. Cracked me up. K-Thomp says, could you give a rabbit a bath? Yeah, you can give a rabbit a bath. There's usually not any reason to. They should be kind of cleaning themselves. Rabbits are pretty clean animals. They want to clean themselves. If you do decide to give your rabbit a bath, I would say wear long sleeves, and maybe some gloves, because they're not going to like it probably. They're going to kick a lot, scratch you up a lot. But it's not the best idea to do it. You want to make sure that you get them dried off really well. I would just suggest don't do it. Again, rabbits are pretty clean. They're going to do a good job of cleaning themselves, kind of like a cat. And it's usually, there's not really any reason to give them a bath. That's just my opinion. Colleen agrees with me. She says no rabbit baths. But I don't think it's a good idea. All right, Kane K says, thank you. And how do you tell how old your quail is if you don't know? And thanks, you're a lifesaver. There's no real way to know exactly how old your birds are if you don't know. You can kind of look at them and tell by the size if they're full grown or not. But if you don't have any other quail to compare it to or any other experience, there's no way for me to explain that to you. You just kind of have to wait and see. So yeah, I can't answer that. There's no way for you to know for sure how old they are. And Jordan says, hey, I'm a redneck. Well, yeah, you're in good company, Jordan. Foxy Gaming says, my quail cage is about 30 times 50. Is it good for 2 males? 30 what times 50 what? 30 inches by 50 inches? If that's fine, yeah, it's perfectly fine for 2 quail. It's plenty of room for 2 quail if that's what you're talking about. All right, Neil says, do you call or not incubate your smaller eggs or weigh less than others? I don't really weigh my eggs. I pretty much throw everything in the incubator whenever I go to incubate, unless it's like overly small or, whenever I collect eggs up, I got a week's worth of eggs and, like my incubator holds 120 and there might be 130 eggs there. So yeah, in that case, I'll take out what look to be the smallest ones or the dirtiest ones or whatever and take those out and replace those with other ones. One that's overly dirty, I don't incubate, but I don't weigh my eggs and take the smallest ones and throw them. I don't really worry about it too much. Most of my incubations are just meat runs anyway, so I'm not really too worried about getting, the absolute biggest bird out of them. And if I do, then, if I don't get big birds out of them, I'm going to eat them anyway, so it's no big deal to me. Walt says, the guy who built his own incubator, where did he get the egg turner from? All right, good question, Walt. Who was it that built their own incubator? I don't see the comment coming back. The big cabinet style, you said incubator warehouses where you got the parts from. I don't know if they sell incubator or egg turners or not, but that may be it. All right. Nelson Homestead says, hi, I'm new to your channel and love it. Very informative. Well, thank you so much, Nelson. And thank you for joining in with us in the live broadcast. I appreciate that. All right, Crystal says, 2 of my does are aggressive right after breeding, and they stay that way up until the babies are gone, or going in and out of the nest box. I take the nest box out, and then they're fine. Rabbits are crazy. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's weird. Some of them do the weirdest things. I've had does that were just the nicest things, and as soon as they have, it's the same kind of thing. As soon as they have babies, they're just aggressive, grumpy. They don't want to be handled. Usually it's the other way around, though. I have does that are somewhat grumpy, and when they have babies, they're just calm and mellow and very content. That's what I see more often than not, but who knows? Rabbit psychology is like cat psychology. Who knows why they do what they do? All right, Tony Young says, how big does a quail cage have to be? Depends on how many quail you want to keep in there. I would say you want to keep quail in groups of 5 at the minimum, so 4 females to 1 male. That would be the smallest group I would want to keep. They are communal animals. They do like to be together in groups. And for that, you really want to figure about a foot, about 1 square foot per bird. So you would need about a 5 square foot cage for that. So that could be, let's see, what would that be, 2 foot by 3 foot, 2.5 by 2.5, whatever. 18 inches tall is about how tall you want to make them. Hopefully that answers that question for you. Chris Shane says that can kill them. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Rabbits and giving them baths can kill them. It can. It could put them into shock, but it's unlikely that it will. But it's a possibility. All right, Kyle says, what brand of pellets do you feed your rabbits? My rabbit food comes from a local feed store. I can't remember what the brand is, but it's their brand. It's their feed store brand. They just sell locally. They don't sell all over the country. And that's what I would suggest. If you've got a local feed store anywhere that has, especially if they have their own mill, that's the place to go to buy your food, your quail food or your rabbit food. So much cheaper than buying it from a big box store and buying name brands. All right, MJ says, at what age do you start breeding your does? About 6 months. We kind of had this discussion a little bit earlier, but I don't like to breed rabbits before they're 6 months old. I feel like that's about the time that they are mature, adult, and can handle breeding. Any earlier than that, it just doesn't seem right to me. So I wait till about 6 months. All right. Cobra, who are you talking about? What? Are you just spamming us? I don't know. All right, the Bluesman says they sell the egg turners for $25 each. Just have to put them together. It's not hard. Well, good feedback, Bluesman. Thank you. $25 for an egg turner is not a bad deal. All right, Walt says, hey, got a keyboard commando. Yeah, I'm just noticing that too. Oh well, just ignore them. Don't feed the trolls. Hey, Boris, how are you? And Kay Aldridge says, got my first quail eggs this week. Thank you for the inspiration to try quail. Well, thank you so much for watching the videos. I'm so glad that you find them helpful, and glad to hear that you got your eggs this week. Good luck on your hatch. Walter, no problem. You don't have to apologize for being late. We're not. Nobody's punching the clock here. Nobody's going to write you up or anything. So you're good. Thanks for joining, and especially thanks for coming back and watching the videos later, because I don't know how exciting that would be to watch a live broadcast later on, but hey, I'm glad that you're finding it helpful and beneficial. Speaking of later on, where are we at here? We got a couple of minutes left, just about 4 or 5 minutes left, and I got to get this closed out and go spend some time with the family. What else we got for the video here tonight? All right, Crystal says, usually once my doe's baby rabbits are 3 weeks old, they are the sweetest things. The babies are, or the does? Oh, once the babies are 3 weeks old, the does become very, very sweet. Yeah, like I said, rabbits are nuts. I mean, who knows? Who knows why they do what they do? They're crazy. Bill Thor says, hatch 21 quail, 11 hens, 10 roosters. Is that typical? That's not untypical at all. Especially if you're really counting on them to produce a bunch of hens, you're going to get a bunch of roosters. But yeah, I would say that's pretty average. About a 50% rooster to hen ratio is probably about average. All right, how much does it cost to produce a quail egg? Well, Logan, that depends. If you want to take into consideration building cages and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, I mean, who knows? Don't even figure it up, because you're going to be really sad with what you come up with. But if you're talking about just on like feeding a bird from the time it hatches until the time it starts laying eggs, let's see, I did a study on that a while back, and I can't remember what it came up to, but it's not very much. I can't remember what I entitled that video. Was it how much does it cost to raise quail or something like that? I figured it all up. How much it costs to get the birds up to about 8 weeks old, which is about the time they would start laying eggs. But I don't remember the exact figures I came up with. So check and see if you can find that video. That'll help. All right. Okay, Ray says, Chris, do you have any videos on mastitis in does? No, I don't have any videos on that. I mean, I've never had problems with it myself, so I can't really answer many questions with it, but luckily it's not a very common thing in rabbits. All right. Is it okay? MJ Homestead says, is it okay to wean baby rabbits once they are eating pellets and drinking, or would you wait until they're 5 weeks old? Wait until they're 6 weeks old, MJ. Really, they're going to start eating pellets like as soon as they leave the nest box, 10, 11 days old, but they're not weaned yet. You don't want to wean them any earlier than about 6 weeks old. It can lead to what they call weaning enteritis, which can give them diarrhea, cause all kinds of problems. So it's really best wait till they're 6 weeks old. Colleen says, I have a doe that seems upset trying to get out of the cage since we removed her grow outs. That's unfortunate. That usually is not the case with me. I think they're pretty used to, well, no, I shouldn't say used to it, but they kind of have the instincts, I guess, that their babies are going to leave the nest pretty quick. Because in nature, in the wild, if you didn't have them caged up, they're not going to hang around their babies. They're going to go off and do whatever they want. They're going to come back and feed about every 12 hours, and that's it. They're not going to be around them the rest of the time. So whenever they leave the nest, they're just done and gone. But I do find, again, that my does seem to be more content a lot of the times when they do have babies. So who knows? Maybe there is something to that. Yeah, Walt, Timber the Hatch does have a lot to do with the rooster ratio, but it's not so much that it changes the eggs from hens to rooster. It's just that the temp can cause the roosters not to hatch. So you end up with like dud eggs that would have been roosters. If you have a really good hatch rate, you're probably going to end up with a lot of roosters, probably half. It's just the way it goes. How do you get a quail to calm down when it's freaking out? Well, K&K, you just really kind of have to give it a little bit of, just give it some time, it'll calm down. That's all I can say. There's no trick to doing it. Especially if they're kind of wild to begin with. If you grab a hold of one and pick it up, it's probably not going to calm down. It's a little bit freaked out. It's being held, by what it perceives as a predator. So it's probably not going to calm down very much. You just have to give them time, over time, with you feeding them every day, with you coming to the cage every day, they're going to calm down. They're going to get used to you, and they're going to relax. It just takes a little bit of time. There's no trick to it. All right, guys, it's getting pretty late here. 8 o'clock. I got to go spend some time with the family tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining this broadcast tonight. We're going to close this out, get it wrapped up. K-Thomp, you can find me on Facebook. Look for a Facebook group, Slightly Redneck. Just search the group out. I've got a Facebook page too. I don't post a whole lot on there. I'm not a very good Facebooker. But we also have a Facebook group. There's lots of people in there. Everybody joins in. So you guys can find us on there, Slightly Rednecked, under Facebook groups. And feel free to join. We let anybody join. If you start being a jerk to people, we'll boot you out. But other than that, you're free to join. Watch the language. It's a family environment. All the good stuff. Just be a good person. You're welcome to join. So thank you guys again so much for joining the video. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for the super chats tonight. I appreciate that as well. I hope every one of you has a great night. We will see you all again next week. And as always, God bless. Good night.